Hi, hello, it's me, Tiana, back at it again for another video, and today we are talking about my favorite movie, Love and Basketball. So, if you're wondering, Tiana, why are we talking about Love and Basketball, a movie that came out in the year 2000? Like, that's so random. Like, what? So let me give you a little bit of backstory, as I want to do, because I love over explaining myself. So the reason why I want to do a video about Love and Basketball is partly because I watched it for the first time in a very long time on Monday. So to give you some history with me in the movie, Love and Basketball was my favorite movie in my childhood. I was like, I don't know, 8 when the movie came out. So I kind of like have lived with it for most of my life. When I was a teenager, I used to watch it all the time. When I was on when I had like my first iPod Touch, I had 2 movies on there. It was Love and Basketball and The Players Club. Don't ask me why I was 15 years old watching The Players Club over and over on the loop. I don't know. I didn't have a lot of supervision as a child. But that was my favorite movie. Literally, I went a year, like when I was in high school, I think I was like 17 years old, where I literally watched the movie every day for a year. Like, it was my favorite movie. Throughout the years, however, as I've been on Twitter, I've seen like a lot of discussion about the movie and about how it's not like a good representation of Black love, and it's like struggle love, and overall just it's been in this conversation that people have been having about Black representation and what sort of movies we want like to be like representative of us. I went a long periodical time without watching the movie, right? And I was just taking in these critiques over and over to the point where I was starting to like second guess my love for the movie, because I was trying to figure out, you know, that separation of nostalgia versus like quality. Like, is this a good movie, or is this just a movie I've seen a bunch of times that I love? I really wanted to like come into this movie with an open mind. I wanted to let go of my, you know, previous love for the movie and like growing sort of disdain for the movie from watching and listening to like all these critiques of it, and just really see what like the movie was really trying to tell me. Like, really tap in to the movie, because spoiler alert, the movie is perfect. The movie is perfect. I'm so sorry. And I want to talk about what makes the movie perfect, and also why the critiques that people have of the movie like don't like ring true to me. Also, I am keeping the glasses because the people in the comments said they didn't care, so y'all don't care, I don't care. Anyways, Love and Basketball, if you have never seen the movie, you should watch it. It's on Hulu. But if you haven't seen the movie, watch it first and then come back to this video, because I am gonna spoil it. But let me give like a brief refresher if you just haven't seen it in a while. So basically it's the story of Monica, who is moving to a new town with her family. They moved from Atlanta to LA, and she meets her next door neighbor, who is a little boy named Quincy. Their first meeting and interaction is a game of basketball, and they sort of get to know each other throughout the movie. We go into like their relationship sort of building. We learn more about Monica and her love of basketball and her goal to be the first woman in the NBA, because at the time of this movie, when it was set, the WNBA did not exist yet. You know, starting like 6th grade or something, in this new school. We see her in high school, and we see her in college, and then we see her after college. And it's really a story about the journey of Monica. And spoiler alert, she does end up being in the WNBA at the end of the movie, because the WNBA, you know, comes into existence during the process of. A lot of people, right, critique this movie because they feel like the issue of the movie is the love story between Monica and Quincy. People view this movie as a romance movie, but to me, Love and Basketball is more of a drama. And I get why people view it as a romance, because the name of the movie is Love and Basketball. But the other thing that we have to consider is the movie is about Monica's love for basketball. And the movie is more focused on Monica's story and Monica's growth. So a lot of the issues that people have with their relationship between Monica and Quincy is because Quincy is a little bit underdeveloped. And I will give you that critique. Quincy is terrible. From the very first time we see him on scene, very first scene is him seeing Monica and being like, oh, we have, it's a new boy on the new boy in the neighborhood, because she was wearing a hoodie. And when she asked to play basketball, they was like, sure. He immediately puts her on the team with his friend who was bad because he wanted to beat her. And then when she took off the hood and he realized it was a girl, he insulted her. And then we also see he ends up pushing her down at the end of the game when he's losing, and we see him like left a scar on her face. After that scene, it's another scene where we sort of get like an enemies to lovers thing, where even though he was being mean to her, she kind of like develops a crush, and he develops a crush, and then they start dating. She wants to tell her what to do, and she does not want him to tell her what to do. They get into a fight in which Monica wins, and yeah, then we see him in high school, and he pretty much ignores her, and he's kind of mean to her. But we also see a little glimmer that he goes to all her basketball games, right? And then when we're in college, he breaks up with her because of some familial issues he was going on with his father. He had recently found out that his father was cheating on his mother and might have gotten someone else pregnant. And he was like dealing with really the thing that a lot of people I think go through when they are like 18, 19, 20 years old, starting to realize that their parents are human beings who make mistakes, and their parents are like real people. So he was getting to that place where he was trying to process the fact that his father was a real person who makes mistakes, right? And who does things wrong, and who's not perfect. And maybe it's not the person that he should be modeling himself after. Because another thing that they threaded throughout the movie was that Quincy was like, he idolized his father. There was nothing he wanted more than to be like his father. Again, in that first scene where he first meets Monica, when she's talking about her favorite basketball player, who is Magic Johnson, he's talking about his father, who's a professional basketball player, as his favorite player. And while he couldn't like tell you the stats of how great his father is or the points or whatever, he was still like enamored with the idea that his father was in the NBA, and he wanted to be in the NBA because his father was in the NBA, and she wanted to be in the NBA because she loved basketball, right? So it was, we see from the beginning the threads is there. After he finds out the stuff with his father, we then have a scene in which Monica is trying to like talk to him through this, but she has to go back to curfew because she wants to be able to play in the game, and if she misses curfew, she cannot play in the next basketball game. Quincy he gets in his feelings about it. He ends up, I don't know if he cheated. Like, a lot of people feel like he cheated. I don't know that he cheated. I don't know that the narrative is telling us that he actually cheated, but that he wanted, like, he was trying to get attention. He wanted Monica to be paying attention to him. But it's a scene where Monica goes to Quincy's dorm the day after she kind of blew him off. Well, not really blew him off, but after she left him to, and couldn't stay with him past curfew, she went to his dorm to see if he was okay, and it was another girl at the dorm. And he told her that he was like going to take the girl to out to eat or something like that. Monica leaves, and then when they like link back up later, she's like, oh, did you have fun with your hoe or whatever she said? I can't remember. Monica was a slut shamer. She just was. But and Quincy like just said he took the girl to Burger King, and that was it. I don't feel like there's anything else in the story that's telling us that anything else happened more than he took her to Burger King, and he like was purposely trying to be seen with this girl to make Monica jealous. And that's not me like making excuses for Quincy. That's just me saying the narrative is not telling us that anything else happened. There's no implication. There's no like shady anything that would let us like definitively know if something happened more than just him being like with her without Monica. And to some people that might be cheating, like that might be enough for it to be like the end of a relationship. But anyways, Quincy ended up breaking up with Monica because he felt like because he said he felt like Monica did not have enough time for him. But narratively, if you're paying attention to the story, you can really see that it was more about him not knowing how to trust people. The person that he, like I said, idolized the most had lied to him and betrayed him, so he felt like he could not trust Monica because he did not know if Monica would do the same things that his father did to him. So they ended up breaking up. Quincy goes into professional basketball. He joins the NBA, and Monica finishes college. She then goes overseas to play in Spain. And then this is the part of the movie that people really have the most issue with, and I don't even really have much of a defense for it, but let me explain it. So after Quincy, 5 years pass, Quincy is injured in the NBA, and Monica sees this on TV, I'm pretty sure, and decides to come home. I'm not sure if she saw it on TV. Like, I won't say that that's what happened, but she finds out that he was injured, and she comes back home, and she goes to visit Quincy in the hospital, and she finds out that he's getting married to Tyra Banks, right? So Quincy and Monica keep having like these interactions because, as we know, they're next door neighbors. So at one point, when she's coming home from her new job, now that she's back in America, he like asked her why did she quit basketball, and she said it wasn't fun. And he asked her, well, why isn't it fun? And she was like, I don't want to talk about it, right? And then in that conversation, he also states that basketball is not fun for him anymore, that he felt like he needed basketball when he was trying to be his father, and now that he has healed from the trauma of finding out that his father was a cheater and a liar, that he wasn't sure if he still loved basketball, and that he wanted to maybe pursue going back to school or getting an education or trying something different because basketball didn't fulfill him in the same ways. That's important. We'll come back. We'll circle back to that. So after that, Monica has a conversation with her mother, in which her mother basically was like, you need to be with Quincy. I don't know why you like acting like you don't. And that scene in the kitchen with her mom, most of the movie I know word for word, but that scene, I really be like, when I watch the movie, I really be acting out that whole scene of them in the kitchen and the slap and the are they cursing their mothers in Spain? I say that constantly. Anytime anybody says any sort of curse to me, I'm like, are they cussing their mothers in Spain? But anyways, so Monica takes her mother's advice, and she's like, you know what? I need to say something. So she goes to Quincy's window, and she's like, we need to talk. And he's like, talk about what? And she's like, I love you, or whatever. I forget. She was like, the reason why basketball, you asked me why I didn't love basketball anymore, and it's because you were missing from basketball, which honestly I feel like is out of character, but we'll get to it. So then we have Monica and Quincy playing basketball for the relationship. So if Monica wins, they'll try to be together again, and if Quincy wins, then she will leave him alone and let him get married. Now, this is a problematic setup. I honestly wish that the movie did not do this. Like, I feel like the reason why people don't like the movie, or feel like the movie struggle of, or feel like the movie is like problematic, is specifically because of the scene. However, I love the scene. I feel like this, if you can ignore like the problematic nature of her deciding 2 weeks before he gets married that they needed to play basketball to determine whether he was going to marry this girl who's not here and does not know this is happening, or like be with her. And it's not even like he was like, okay, I'll either marry you or her. Like, it was I just felt like it was too serious of a situation for it to be that like cavalier, maybe. Like, and I feel like the way you could fix that maybe is not have him be engaged, but also I feel like if he's not engaged, then there's no real like barrier for them to just be together. Like, she could just come home and be like, oh, maybe he should have been about to propose. Maybe like they could have been like dating, and like he could have like showed Monica the ring, and then she was like, oh, I need to do this, or I need to say something before he gets married, and that would have been better, like a better setup on the Monica side. However, on the Quincy side, the fact that he couldn't just be like, yeah, I do still love you, or, you know, I do want to still have this relationship, and he like played basketball, a game of basketball, and did not like let her win, because the basketball scene is a callback to earlier in the movie where it was another basketball scene inside their dorm room, in which they played like strip basketball, and Monica beat Quincy when they were playing strip basketball, and Quincy said the reason why she won is because he let her win. So they did it again at the end of the movie, because she wanted to like subconsciously, if you let me win this game, or if I win this game somehow, it's because you like deep down love me. But I feel like, I don't know, it's a movie. It's a movie. Like, what? The cinematics of it, like the theatricalness of it, is what you're supposed to take from it. Like, you're not supposed to be thinking so deeply, like, oh, he cares, like he don't love her, he just like. And I've seen so many people say that Monica spends the entire movie begging Quincy to love her. And number one, that is just blatantly untrue. And it's the reason why the critiques for this movie fall so like hollow to me is because a lot of the critiques, you can very clearly see that this person either has never watched the movie, has only seen parts of the movie, or has not watched the movie in a while, because you are blatantly leaving out so much context to make your point that it feels like, I said, people hyper focus on the one scene that like narratively makes sense, but like in the real world is kind of sketchy, right? Like, in the story, it makes sense for them to be playing basketball for their love, because they found love in each other through basketball. The game and their first relationship, like the first time they ever dated and liked each other, started from a basketball game. So it should end with a basketball game. It makes sense, like narratively. However, I understand if you put that in a real world context, if you think about it a little bit deeper, like it does sound a little bit crazy. The idea that Monica was chasing Quincy the entire time is just blatantly untrue. Quincy asked Monica to date him when they first met, when they first were children, and Monica was not even really that interested in him. But I think she thought he was cute, and he was like the first boy that she met in the neighborhood, and the relationship was not that serious. They were like 8 years old. He asked her to be his girlfriend. And instead of her being like a pick me, choose me, love me type of girl, when he told her that she had to ride on his bike, she was assertive and she stood up for herself. And she was like, no, I don't want to do that. I'm my own woman. I don't need you. And he broke up with her because she wouldn't just go along with what he wanted. Like, and then the second time, the second time that they dated, when they were in high school, yes, Monica was in love with Quincy and had been in love with Quincy for years and didn't say anything. It was unrequited. However, Quincy liked Monica too. He just, I don't know, I guess maybe he felt like he didn't want to be in a serious relationship. I will give it to you, it's not really clear why they didn't date prior to when they started dating in their senior year. But Quincy, as I said earlier, was going to all of Monica's games, and a specific point that's hammered in is in the scene where they kissed for the first time. Monica was telling Quincy about a date that she had and how she was on the date, but the only thing she can think about is like how many assists she had or something like that. And he told her the number of assists because he was watching and paying attention to her. He cared about her. And that's what that scene was supposed to tell us. Just like Monica was in love with Quincy, Quincy was in love with Monica. They just had poor communication, and they never really talked through their feelings. And in the scene when they kissed for the first time, she did kiss him first, but he kissed her back, and the relationship was mutual. In the final time, in the scene when they play basketball for the heart, yes, Monica was kind of begging for Quincy to give her a second chance. However, we should have known that Quincy wanted to get back with Monica, or was still in love with Monica. Number one, from the looks that we kept seeing, the way that he interacted with her when she first came to his hospital bed. In the conversation that they had when she went to the hospital, he said that he had tried to call her multiple times throughout the year. And she was like, oh, they must have went to a voicemail, and that, you know, my voicemail was crazy, because he was the one that was trying to get back in contact with her, and she was the one that was ignoring him and didn't want anything to do with him. Like, the narrative that people have created, that Monica was just some hopeless, helpless girl who was madly in love with Quincy, is just blatantly not in the text. Like, it's just not in the movie. That did not happen. Like, that's not what the character of Monica did at any point in the movie. She was not chasing after Quincy. The only relationship that Monica was like fighting for and begging for was her relationship with basketball. She wanted to be the first woman in the NBA, and that was her like laser focused goal. That was the only thing we saw her fight for and lose and like be her. Like, the toxic relationship she was in was her relationship with basketball. Like, we saw her, the growth that we saw from Monica, from her being in high school and being hot-tempered and not being able to play well with other people, but being a good enough basketball player that people still want her team, to watching her grow into college and really developing her craft and becoming a better basketball player, a better teammate, and just a more like level-headed person, and then going off to college where she was the star of her team, and the coach's like advice for the team was just blatantly give Monica the ball, to seeing her in the movie end at being in the WNBA, even though like narratively she would have been like 26 years old, 27 years old, which is a little bit old for a professional basketball player, but she was still good enough at that age to be on a like professional basketball team. Like, we saw the relationship that mattered in the movie, the relationship that we saw develop and grow in the movie was Monica's relationship with basketball, and we saw how that made her into a better person. Like, and another relationship in the movie that was way more interesting to me to watch, and a conversation that was being had during the movie that was way more entertaining for me and interesting and thought-provoking for me, was the conversation that was being had between her and her mother, and the two like battling ideas of feminism, right? Of her mother feeling like her job as a woman is to make sure that her home is well taken care of, and that, you know, her children are all right and her dreams can come later, but as long as her kids are where they need to be, are doing what they need to do, and her husband is taken care of, then she is doing what she needs to do as a woman. And then have Monica on the other side, who doesn't like traditionally feminine things, who is like really into basketball and sports, which again is not traditionally feminine, who like refuses to perform beauty in the way that women are told that they have to perform beauty, like who is like strong-willed and like passionate and not afraid to like yell and scream and show emotion in public places in a way that women, especially Black women, are not really allowed to do and given space to do. And having that battle between like Monica's mother not understanding who Monica is, and Monica not understanding her mother's lifestyle, and them trying to grow like together and understand each other. Like, the conversation that's being had about how feminists, like women who are like progressive and feminists, look down on women who are not, and how like if you have this perception of what a woman should be or what a woman like is supposed to do, and how you like are closed-minded to other ways to perform femininity. Like, I really related a lot to Monica, even though I was not a tomboy. I was always very femme, but I am somebody who actively has made a choice not to perform beauty in the ways that like women are made to perform beauty. Yeah, I related a lot to Monica because I can understand coming from a different generation of women, of looking at my mother, who, my mom was a single mom for the majority of my life, and she like still was very in that old mindset of, you know, pick me, love me, choose me. And I was more of a feminist since like birth, right? yeah, just to be like someone who is more like progressive and has like more, I don't want to say egalitarian, but like more like men can do, women can do what men can do, and we can do it better and smarter and like quicker and faster and like in hills, like we can do it all sort of mindset of like fighting gender roles and not wanting to be placed in a certain box of what a woman is supposed to be. But the difference between me and Monica is I didn't really look down on women who fell into those boxes, because as I got older, I understood more why women choose to just go with the status quo and why it's easier to lean into misogyny than it is to fight against it. It is very lonely, and it is very hard to have like strong feminist ideas and like stick to it, because even Monica, like, we can talk about how this is a feminist movie. First of all, like, it just is. Like, the conversation that people need to be focused on and tuned into in this movie is the conversation that we're having about femininity. And it's also a conversation being had about masculinity and how Quincy felt like in order to be a man, he had to be a womanizer. And that once he learned that he did not have to perform masculinity in the way that his father performed masculinity, then that was when he was able to like be the husband and father that he needed to be. And that's the conversation that a lot of people aren't having. Like, we talk a lot about Quincy being trash, and Quincy is trash throughout the movie. And I wish that maybe they gave us more like context about how he like grew and developed like in that time period when he was healing after his father, he found out about the stuff with his father. Because I do feel like they were trying to tell us with that conversation that they had on her front yard, when he was saying like he needed basketball when he was trying to be his father and all that. Like, I feel like they were trying to tell us that he had grown, he had learned, and he had matured. But I feel like because that scene is like followed by the scene of them playing basketball for her heart, like it makes him still like seen in that light of a misogynist. That's not me saying he's not a misogynist anymore, but I feel like we were supposed to think that he had grown, and that he was like better now and more mature in a way that he was not previously. Like, we got to stay with Monica the entirety of the movie, so we got to see Monica grow and like try to understand like how to be a woman and a good person. And if we had spent more time with Quincy, or if they had gave us more dialogue about what Quincy like was doing during that time period when we weren't watching him, then maybe that would have been allowed people to forgive Quincy for his transgressions and allow him to be seen as a worthy like love interest for her. I feel like if this movie came out in 2020, they probably would have ended the movie with Quincy and Monica not together. I feel like because of the time period, you kind of had to have them end up together. Like, I feel like the idea that you could have a female protagonist like in a drama, like in the movie, without being partnered with the person that we watched the entire like of their relationship be together, like I don't feel like the concept of that had like really been mainstream yet, especially not in Black movies. It was kind of like necessary for her to end up with somebody at the end, and it only made sense for it to be Quincy. I feel like if this movie, like I said, if this movie had came out in like 2020 or 2021, then we probably could have got a conversation more about how this movie was about Monica's love for basketball and not necessarily about Monica's love for Quincy. And we could have had her ending the movie like in the WNBA without Quincy there as her husband with her baby or whatever. But I don't feel like that like takes anything from the movie. Like, I don't feel like the way the movie ends like is like the antithesis to like what is going on inside the rest of the story. Like, there's so many interesting conversations that's being had in this movie about, like I said, femininity and masculinity and generational like stuff and dealing with your parents and even like first loves and romance and just performing gender in general. And I feel like I just hate that it just got watered down to like it was a bad relationship, because first of all, the chemistry between Sanaa Lathan and Omar Epps in this movie is really unmatched. The scene where they kiss for the first time, I just don't know like a better scene in any movie. Like I just don't know a better scene. I'm so sorry. Like I'll die on the hill that this is a great movie, and it'll be worth it. It'll be worth it. And to sum all of this up, I feel like a lot of times for critiques, and it's not necessarily about Black movies specifically, but and it's about like movies in general. I feel like people hyper focus on one like piece of the story that they don't like or they feel like is problematic, and then turn that into the entire thing is problematic without understanding that sometimes stuff is problematic on purpose. Like narratively it is problematic. Like I was saying with Quincy, like Quincy is terrible from the very first time we see him, and I do believe that maybe we should have had more time to see him like grow and develop, but I don't feel like we were supposed to believe that Quincy was great. Like I don't think that we were supposed to look at the movie and be like, Quincy is a good person. Like I think we were supposed to know that the times that Quincy messed up, the times that Quincy like made bad choices, we were supposed to believe those were bad choices. And the same thing with Monica. When we watch Monica make bad choices or do bad things, we were supposed to believe that that was bad. And I don't think it makes the movie bad if you watched it and didn't realize that you weren't supposed to root for Quincy. Like I don't know if that is Gina Blythe. I don't know if that's Gina's fault that you didn't recognize that this was a movie. But like, and I see that happen so many times in so many different kind of movies where people find one part to nitpick and they say the whole movie is bad because of one thing or one character or one storyline. And it's like overall the movie was saying something, it was doing something, and it was like moving people, and it was provocative and interesting, and it brought up conversations. But because you don't like that this character made this choice, it's a bad movie. Like, or if you like this movie, you like you're problematic. Or if you like this type of like romance, you like toxic relationships. And it's like, I don't want a relationship like Monica and Quincy, but that doesn't stop me from liking the movie and understanding that they had chemistry and understanding that their love story was an interesting one to watch. Like, it's like an all or nothing sort of mindset where movies have to like hit all of your politic points from top to bottom. And if they veer off in any way that is not like in line with what you think they should be doing, then all of a sudden the movie is bad. And it's just like, in order for a movie to even pass the muster at that point, like it would have to either be about nothing or written by you. Like, like you can't really, I don't know. People want movies to have these perfect narratives and these perfect characters that make the choice that you would make and have the relationship that you would want, without recognizing that the movie is not about you and it's a movie about like a fictional character, a fictional relationship. And some of the stories, some of the plot, some of the like stuff won't work in the real world because it's not a real world story. It's a movie. It's fabricated. Like people put too much of their identity into like what they like, and not even necessarily of like, oh, I really love like Sailor Moon, so you know I wear a Sailor Moon costume for Halloween for 30 years in a row, or like anything like people get like super into like Star Wars or whatever. But like people make it their personality to only like certain types of movies and feel like they are more mature or more smarter or like elite because they only like these like brand of movies. And also I feel like a lot of the time people live for being contrarians, which I find it so aggravating. Like, it's my number one internet pet peeve is people who get on the internet and hate everything. Like, if 3 people say they like something, you have to be the one that has to come and be like, I hate it, it was terrible. And it's like, you can't even really articulate why you don't like the movie. You just know too many people like it, so now you hate it. And it's not even just with movies, like it's with TV shows, it's with like musicians and songs and albums and human beings. It's like, why do you feel like you have to hate everything everybody loves? Like, it doesn't make you cooler, it doesn't make you smarter to hate everything that everybody else likes. Like, if you hate the popular thing, it does not make you like cutting edge and like more or whatever. Like, you're a whack person. Like, sometimes people just want to be happy. Like, sometimes people just like fun. Like, everything doesn't have to be I don't even know. Everything doesn't have to be for you. That's another thing I need people to get through their skulls. Everything is not for you. There are plenty of things that I know I won't like, so I simply do not watch them. Also, feel free to just give me suggestions in the comments for stuff that you want to see me talk about. Like this video if you like this content, and I'll see you in the next one.